Welcome to the Sporty Show. A pleasure to have you with us as always. We told you there would be a very special guest on the show today, and we always come through. I'm your host, Sara Pararia, and I'm joined with
the one and only
Angel.
Thank you, Sara.
Don't ever interrupt again.
Wow. So Sara, repeat that intro, please. Don't piss me off on the show. Just start again.
I'm your host, Sara Pararia, and I'm joined by the one and only KlintonCod.
Sara, now you're talking, man. Hold on, let me just drink a sip.
No, we have things to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sporty Show. As usual, this is your boy KlintonCod. Today is a beautiful day again that the Lord has made. That we will speak about football and we will be happy about every single conversation that we would be having today. Any conversation that's going to piss me off, whether it's Real Madrid or Barcelona, no, not Barcelona, sorry, Manchester United, we might not be having it. But anyways, to join me on the show as well to have this amazing, lovely conversation is the girl from Mbano of Nigeria, Imo State. Wagwan, Angel.
I'm good, thank you, Clinton.
Meaning that you're Nigerian already.
Always with the Mbano, but proud to be from Mbano.
First person to be proud of that place.
Yes. Oh, of course. What are you talking about? There's so much to be proud of. I can't really say that about where you're from, but
a lot to be proud
back
of.
to you,
Look
Sara.
at no. Look at the place I came from. Look at what they produced. Look at the creation. Right. Okay, let's not go into English. This thing is beginning to be very difficult.
All right, really quickly, guys, just a friendly reminder of what's coming up on SportyTV this week. Later today, we have Al Raid and Al Ittihad and Nacional versus Internacional in the Copa Libertadores. Tomorrow is River Plate versus Independiente, Yunan Yukan versus Mainu, Al Nasser taking on Al Tawoun, and Saturday we have Kobe versus Osaka and Urawa versus Tokyo in the J-League. In the Bundesliga this week, it's Hoffenheim versus Bayern Munich, and the final of the women's under-17 UEFA Championship. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll wrap it all up on Sunday with Anderlecht and Club Brugge and the Premier League Fulham taking on Brentford. All the football right here on SportyTV. Now enough of that, guys, because we said yesterday, if you could guess this player's career path, you might know who will be joining us on the show. And many of you, in fact, did guess it right. So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome a UEFA Champions League winner, a Primeira League in Portugal winner, an Eredivisie winner, one of the greatest to come from Africa, Benni McCarthy, joining Sporty.
Hi, Sara. Hi, guys in the studio, Clinton.
Finally got my name. Jesus is good.
How are you guys, man?
We're well, Benni. Again, thank you. No, thank you for joining us. It's our pleasure, truly.
No, the pleasure is all mine. And thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And I'm glad people were able to remember who I was.
Well, it seems just like yesterday that you played. So we remember everything. And when you've left all those marks, all those footprints, the sand of time, they would always be remembered, Benni.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Now, I mean, Benni, this is what we do for football. I remember when I used to play for Chelsea. Sorry?
Stop it right now.
You see, Benni, this is what I have to go through in this show. They underrate what I've done, in football. But let's not speak about me. Let's speak about the legend himself, who is now right in front of us,
Well, let's also welcome to the show, though. Friend to the show, South African through and through, Kamo Khelo Motetswane is joining us. And it wouldn't be a full South African connection, Kamo, if we didn't have you here.
Thank you guys as well for having me on. Thank you guys so much for having me on with the legend, Mr. Benni McCarthy. Yeah, it feels good to not be outnumbered for once. Usually, I'm surrounded by a lot of superheroes, but today I'm with.
Kamo, has anybody ever told you that, when you look at him in his face, right, when the voice comes out, it's two different people? Is it just me? It's like you're expecting somebody to say, hello, guys, thank you very much for having me on the show. But that was straight. You went into the, hello, what's up? Relax, man.
Yeah, I get that a lot actually, but I take it as a compliment. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Right.
thank you very much.
Hey, you've got to take the positive out of everything.
Hey, listen, he's taking it. All right, Benny, let's start from the very beginning. And you growing up in South Africa and starting your football career. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into football?
Yeah, I think it was most of my family. My uncles played. Um, Apparently, my dad also played, but I never was able to witness my dad playing. So that's really where the football genetics came into. So just on the streets with friends and stuff. And then my uncle had started a football club, and myself and my older brother and my cousins, we all joined. And right away from early age, I think people were able to notice that, yeah, we were just a little bit above everybody else when it comes to natural talent and be able to play football. And yeah, I pursued it. Myself and my brother was probably the only two that went on a high level, because he managed to play for represent South Africa as well at international level. Was able to make it to trial in England, but unfortunately had knee ligament ruptures, and it kind of shortened his career. And then, but for me, luckily for me, I've never had that kind of incident. So I was able to get out of um, Cape Town and then make my way into onto the international scene. But it wasn't as easy as I just made it sound.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the adversities maybe you faced, whether it was just growing up in South Africa and, you know, trying to pursue a career in football in South Africa, or just anything you feel comfortable that you had to face in order to make it?
Yeah, of course. Meaning when you come from an underprivileged background, it's not so easy, because you don't have the opportunities that privileged kids have when you're in South Africa. So the pathway to making it to where you want to go, it's 10 times more harder. So I remember I used to end up playing in the gangster leagues. We used to call it the Bundesliga. We call it the Bundesliga, and it was all the majority of the drug lords. They had football teams, and then on a Sunday they scheduled this peace day, and it's taken over by football. Then there's no fighting, no incidents happen, because everyone is just solely focused on the football. And I think that's literally where I kind of made my name. And I was only like 12 years old, and you've got these kids playing against proper men, and I guess, like, from winning tournaments and always being selected the best player in those tournaments, I kind of made a name for myself in the underground, in the underworld. And probably through there, that's where I think it ended up coming. My name started being mentioned at national level, and at professional football clubs, that there was a kid who with unbelievable talent, but they can't understand how is he still playing in the ghetto leagues, and nobody even scouted him to take him on a trial anywhere else. And yeah, and I guess when I was playing for my local club, we played a friendly international against the South African under 20 national team, and they were preparing to go to the African under 20, the under 20 Cup. And when we played against the under 20s, my team, we lost 4-3 against the national team, and we were just a normal football club, amateur club, and we lost 4-3 against the national team. And I scored a hat trick in 15 minutes, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that kid he's not bad." And they said, "Yeah, he's younger than the under 20 team." And the coach then spoke with my coach, and that's how I kind of got scouted. And then 2 weeks later, I was on the plane with the under 20s, African Nations Cup in Morocco, and I ended up being top goal scorer and the best player of the tournament. And we lost in the final against Morocco. And yeah, and then all the scouts, Ajax was the club that showed the most interest, and then that's how I got signed up from Ajax Amsterdam, and my journey then really began.
That's really like an incredible story.
Honestly, I didn't even want him to stop. I just wanted to continue giving me this whole story. And obviously, just looking at the pictures flashing on this other part of our screen. Benny, I mean, if anybody's not told you, obviously from a brother from Africa, I thought he really looked very good. I mean, I'm not saying you don't look good anymore, obviously, but looking at, what... looking at what you were before, you could have easily gone into modeling,
Oh, brother, I appreciate all the compliments, man. I really thought that, but you know what was that? That was because when you come from the ghetto
Yeah.
and you start falling into money. Now you're able to buy all the nice products,
And
the
the gold
face
teeth.
cream and the gold too. You could freshen, you could sharpen yourself up to have a little bit of an image. So yeah, and I think like from early age, once I made that jump up into the big leagues, I wanted to look the part as well. So that's probably why you see always fresh hairstyles and everything was very well maintained. So thank you for the compliment.
No. I just have to speak the truth, man. It's just, I mean, imagine a camel. You see, I'm not trying to shade you here, but
Don't do
even if you made it into football, nothing is going to change, man. I'm sorry about that one, bro.
You're horrible.
He needed to hear the truth, man.
No.
Anyway, Benny, having told us about your journey, just so on a lighter note, having told us about your journey, you talked about playing on the streets and everything, and how it led you, to this, to what you eventually achieved. Would you actually say that the style of play or football in the 80s and the 90s and now, which is easier? Is it easier for people to break in? Because when you talk about your story, you talk about the adversities that led you, to getting it. And it wasn't an easy part at all from what you said, despite how beautifully you put it. So considering the 90s, the 80s, the 90s, from when you came into the limelight, and now for current South African players, which is easier?
Oh my God, back then it was hell getting through. It was hell being able to get to where you wanted to be or where you wanted to go. Because now they've got all this luxury, what you call academies, and players are getting pampered, they're getting well looked after. Now when people think there's going to be potential, then already you get a massive contract because they want to sign the potential before you even achieved anything and that. But back in the days, you had to show what you had. You had to show what you can do. Nothing came easy, and I think based on that, it was much harder trying to make it to become a professional footballer back in the 80s and the 90s and in the 2000s than what it is now. Now, if a player has the potential to become a huge star in people's eyes, even if you're at under 15, under 12 level, they buy the product hoping that in 5 years' time that it will pay off. So then that kid at 15 years old, 16 years old can already buy his parents a house and that because clubs already invest in those players. But back then you had to really, really duck deep and claw your way through everything to really make it into the first team and become a household name before you even start seeing any any kind of rewards.
And Camel, I also want to get your opinion on this, but Benny, we'll start with you. And before we get into your European debut and going to Ajax, but I wanted to ask about the South Africa World Cup. First of all, I know you weren't there. Was that something that you regret? And also, I wanted to ask, how do you guys, both of you, think hosting a World Cup affected the Football Foundation in South Africa. Did you guys see a major change after it happened? Benni, we can start with you.
For me, it was heartbroken. It was heartbreaking. The career that I had starting from South Africa, from where I began until where it really took me. I'm playing for a lot of superpower houses, clubs in Europe, and then finally to have a World Cup for the first time played in Africa, and then in your own home country, and you probably being the biggest football star to have come out of your country because of where I've played and what I've won at that time, and then not to play in a World Cup in your own home show was literally heartbreaking. But uh, listen, I've gotten over it now over the years, but that is probably one of the regrets that you will always have, that I was never being able to be part to play in a World Cup that was hosted in my country, because I know I moved clubs and I kind of got an injury, so I came back from my injury, and I know. I think at that time they said I wasn't fit enough. I was unfit and that, but I think still I the experience that I had at that time, and the teams that I played for, compared to the players that we had in South Africa, that we had in that national team, we could have done with, having someone like myself around the players, just, for morale booster. And when it comes to games, when you're looking to win, to drag a result out like they did against Mexico in the opening game, then you think experience counts. And I think we were just a little bit inexperienced, and there wasn't enough experience. So I think the manager made a massive mistake by not including me in the squad. But his view was he selected a player that could that was fitter, that was younger, that he thought that could give the national team an edge, instead of a player who's just came back from injury, and that that wasn't fully fit, and he didn't know what he was going to get from me. But I think the way I know myself, when you play in a World Cup in your country, I think, as much as I've just came back from injury not too long ago, I think I would have sweated blood for my country, because I would have wanted him to succeed, and I would have wanted to do the best that I possibly can, because it was a World Cup on African soil, and it was in South Africa. So yeah, so for that I am a bit heartbroken, because I never was included in that squad. But uh, it is what it is now. It's many years later. So yeah, I kind of gotten over it. And
Kamahalo,
and the second
sorry.
question,
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, and I think the second question, I think South Africa, we let ourselves down a little bit in not developing our football, our country even further, because we inherited all these amazing stadiums, the training facilities, but it was never used in a proper way to develop and and to even strengthen grassroots football and strengthen South Africa's stamp on the world, because we were the first African country to host a World Cup with the infrastructures that was put in place and the financial gains that the country had. But I think mistreating funds and just letting it go, because now the World Cup is finished. And I think, yeah, it's a little bit disappointing to see where we still are compared to other African countries, African nations, or other nations that has hosted the World Cup, and how far ahead they are to where South Africa and African football still is today.
Kamahalo, can we get your opinions on both of these two questions? Let's start with the 2010 World Cup and Benni not being there. What were your thoughts on that? As, I guess, a fan, you know?
Yeah, of course, of course. Hosting the World Cup and it being on the African continent for the first time, and not having perhaps the biggest player in our nation's history was a big blow, for all the things that were said and was surrounding his omission. Like he said, you still need that experience, that Champions League winning experience, that Premier League winning experience, that Golden Boot winning experience. So it was a massive blow to the country. And you could see in the results because we didn't make it to the round of 16 only by goal difference. And you think if we had somebody like Benny, he could have given us that extra edge or those extra goals against Mexico or against France, because I guess those are the two games in which we had our best chances. Because Diego Forlan was quite a menace when we played against us during that time. So so having somebody like Benny, who you could say is arguably one of the best players to ever come out of Africa, and to not have him at that type of World Cup and in that type of environment was a massive blow. So I think from a fan perspective, it's unfortunate, and of course we don't mean to disrespect any of the players that were selected during that time, because there were some top players that went on or were playing Premier League football as well. So but to not have a Champions League winner, that's a massive blow. And as it pertains to our evolution to football ever since then, I'd say when there was an expectation to, for it to give us the platform to progress as a nation, to be a force on the African continent, but that wasn't the case. If anything, we regressed quite drastically. New lows, we didn't qualify for AFCONs, we didn't qualify for World Cups. We haven't qualified for a World Cup since Benny was still around, because the 2010 World Cup was kind of like a formality in a way. So, we've only ever regressed since that. As he said, misappropriation of funds, a lot of controversy surrounding our administration as far as the FA is concerned. So, all these things and all these things kind of culminated in such a way where, we now see ourselves not even being amongst the top 10 nations in Africa. And that breaks my heart. And a country like South Africa, who's successful at so many other sports, or every other sport, as a matter of fact, for football to be as low as it is, it's a shame and should not be the case. But right now we're coming back up. We look poised to make it to the World Cup at Nigeria's expense. Sorry,
Listen, see, Carol, listen. I was listening to you, hoping you don't bring any kind of fire. But if that's what you want, let me find somebody to go and fill this with water, man, because there's going to be a lot of fire in this studio very soon. No.
It is what it is. It's not my fault. You know what I'm saying? So
Nigeria,
it's.
Boniface, Osimhen, just look.
I mean, you're free to say that, considering that Nigeria was all over the internet after they got one over you at the African Cup of Nations, the last African Cup of Nations, So
didn't Ivory Coast get one over you then, though?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that so they have a right to gloat. Like he has a right. South Africa has a right to gloat because Nigeria did the same.
Thank you, Angel. I appreciate
it.
If only all this time I've been begging the Nigerian Football Federation to get me as a coach, I would not be listening to all this. Look, everybody's now throwing jab at the giant of Africa. Like this is Nigeria we're speaking about, Nigeria.
But anyways, you've talked about the issues, not just with South Africa, but even generally with African football. Nigeria, for example, got to the African, Cup of Nations final, and now is struggling to qualify for the World Cup, and their chances look slim. What do you think can be done to improve the situation? I've been using South Africa, for example, as a yardstick for other African countries. What do you think can be done? We've seen Morocco, for example, other teams, who are doing well, even on the international stage. What do you think can be done by South Africa and Nigeria, for example, to improve the situation of football in Africa?
Should I go to Benny for this one?
No, for Benny. Benny.
Oh, yeah, let's go to
I'm sorry, Benny. I should have mentioned your name. Benny, what can we do to improve the situation in South Africa? We've talked about misappropriation of funds, so many issues. What can be done? What is the solution? What's the way forward?
I think South Africa is slowly but surely getting onto the right path because they've employed the manager Hugo Bruce, and they've given him time to build the squad, to build the team, and you can see now there's that continuity and consistency within the South African national team. So slowly but surely, they've started to start climbing the ladders again because they had good preparations. They had a coach that's been there for more than 3 years now. and he was able to implement his philosophy into the team and to that. And I think South Africa is a little bit stable. They're not there yet because I still think within the federation, that's where the biggest problem still lies. You know, where when you are forever shifting where the team camps and there's no settled base for the team to come, and that's what where Morocco has succeeded, Egypt has succeeded, and you see the countries, the African countries, the North African countries, they take a leap out of what they do in Europe. Every team has a base where you come in. The French, they've got Clairefontaine, um, Holland, they've got Caen Faber. England has St George's. So I think when you have an established base, every time you come, so for the players that they familiar with, okay, this is home whenever we come to the national team. Whereas in Africa, that don't happen. They stick you in a hotel, and football players will always be football players. They sneak they sneak out and they go clubbing and they partying when they're supposed to be in camp because there's no control over players when you are camping in hotels. But when you have a base, you kind of have control over that, and you control the narrative, and you control what happens in every camp. And then that's also how you implement on discipline and all those kind of things. And that's why I think the Algerians, Moroccans, Egypt, they've got it right. Whereas West Africa and Southern Africans, we've not gotten to that level yet, to that stage. And I think only when that is implemented, and then I think we will be able to do much better because players wise, talent wise, you can't tell me that with the players that Nigeria have, that they shouldn't be in the top three in Africa, or in the top 20 in the world, because they've got world beaters in their team, but they're struggling to qualify for the World Cup. That is a shambles. And with the talent that is in South Africa, exactly the same. So I think that's where we have to lay the foundations, right? I think.
How are you, as a manager now? I know we're skipping ahead, but how are you kind of bringing that you, way of thinking into being a manager now and, having to, I don't want to say control young footballers, but obviously you're dealing with egos, you're dealing with adolescents, you're dealing with a lot of things, as well as, all these issues with the fundamental football in Africa. How are you handling that as a manager, and how are you trying to translate that to your players?
Because I take a look at my career, and I wasn't the easiest player also. I also had my faults. So I just go by that, and I try and be the manager or the coach I would have loved to have when I was playing. A coach I can, a coach that you can speak to as a senior, but that's open enough, that you can come and have, like, you can issue your problems, or a coach that can understand players. So I try and manage players a little bit like a friend, but also that they know why they are there for. That um, any kind of problems, you can come to me, or you can go to my coaching staff. The door is wide open for anything. But I think that there's also should be there's rules, within how open we are. But there's also a element of discipline. There's an element of rules, and if players obey by that, then we're gonna have a really smooth transition. We're gonna have smooth relationship. But if players don't want to be there, if players think that they are bigger than the national team, bigger than the club, or bigger than the manager, then you just won't get selected. And I think when success comes, those players always want to be part of a successful team. And but if burned yourself with managers because you thought you were bigger than the team itself, and you didn't want it to be part of a squad that that obey by the rules, that live by a certain code, but you also get to have fun, you know. I'm a manager that I allow my players to go out as long as they invite me, not a problem at all. You
Benny,
know?
I want to be one of your players. With how beautiful you're talking about
Benny, sorry, I mean, this is probably going to.
Yes.
This is based on what you've just mentioned regarding the kind of manager you want to be for Kenya, especially inspiring these youngsters, from the country. Now, this type of manager, in terms of the behavior, which manager do we currently see in football, let's say in any of the leagues, that has this type of behavior that you want to impact on this Kenyan side? Or who would you just say is an
I
example?
think if you look at modern day football, I think Don Carlo Ancelotti is the prime example. That is someone that oozes respect, and the players respect him a lot. I know he's aging now very well, and if I can give a young generational manager, someone that I played against when I was coming through, and I see how successful he is and how well is done because he's been given the opportunity, is Xavi Alonso. Xavi Alonso seems to, players want to play for him. They know he understands the game, so he's got his rules of how he works and the type of discipline that he implements in his team and what he wants from his players. But he also gives them the freedom. You don't you see those players, they when they are around him, they themselves. And I think when you're able to transparent that into the players for them to be themselves, then the sky's the limit really for you.
Is he a Real Madrid fan or what?
I'm glad
I
that you
mean, to be
mentioned
honest, right?
Ancelotti.
I was literally because no.
Okay.
The fact that he mentioned Carlo Ancelotti, right, and then mentioned Xabi Alonso.
Face drop. I found you go with.
Oh,
Right?
No, but Sarah though, you.
No, no, I'm not wearing blanco for nothing, guys. Come on, man.
Benny, I'm glad that you said that
Come
because,
on.
we had an argument. We've been having this argument about Carlo Ancelotti's style of managing on the pitch because he.
You don't have to bring this argument here, right? No,
No, we don't have to bring it. We are just telling Benny why his face dropped. Benny, we're trying to explain to you why Clinton's face dropped. He said he doesn't like Carlo Ancelotti's style of management. Like he feels like he doesn't react on the sideline. Like he pampers the players. He needs to be more firm or more irate, like Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte on the sideline. But now you're saying something else. Do you agree with Clinton that in that regard?
No, sorry, sorry, Benny,
Listen,
before you answer that question, sorry.
Okay.
Benny, please, you see, she has just given you that question with a whole bunch of bias from her side. So she's typically giving you an answer before you even given.
Benny, don't let him influence.
No. Man, influencer. Benny, let me tell you what the problem is here, right? First of all, you didn't let him know that we're speaking about Ancelotti and this current Real Madrid, right? This Real Madrid that he's managing is a whole bunch of different type of players. These are superstar players coming together, especially that front four. When you look at the Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius, you're looking at the Rodrigo, the Jude Bellingham, a whole bunch of them, even down to Valverde, right? These are all highly rated players, right? And you need some kind of manager who will, you will see that action. You will see that personality that, if I was a player, there's some level of, I don't want to say fear, but, somebody who's pushing me whilst the game is on. Now, this is not who I see Ancelotti as, sincerity. Now, I've not been a player. I don't know what he is in terms of what he does on the pitch. I don't hear what he says. But I always just feel like when you look at the types, the coaches like, say, a Klopp, or maybe the former Chelsea, who is now the England manager,
Thomas
Tuchel, right? All these are the
Thomas
kind
Tuchel.
of even when you even look at Diego Simeone. In all sincerity, I know people would say, "All these teams, where are they?" But I always like that personality when it comes to being on that sideline, and that guy who's saying, "Listen, I don't like what's why come, fall back, get out. Like all this kind of stuff. I love. Okay, the way Benny has laughed, I think I already know his answer already. Benny, what type of manager are you in that regard?
I feel you, but I think you have to just look at Carlo. Don Carlo, I think he's aging now, so the energy is dropping a lot. He's not as vocal, he's not as active as he used to be. I know he wasn't always, but he gives the responsibility over to his players. And I think what he's finding, this generation of Real Madrid players, they are world superstars, but you still have to remember they still all under 25. So they still kids. You understand? And when you give players with that kind of age too much responsibility, they're not of the generation that Carlo has always worked with, the more experienced players that wants to have that kind of responsibility, and then they go and do it. So I think these guys, they need a Xavi Alonso, someone that runs down the touch line, and sometimes, yeah, they have the quality, they have the ability, but you do get to a certain stage, especially when you play the likes of Barcelona, or when you play the situation that they were in against Arsenal. Then you need just a younger manager that's on the touch line, that's there, so the players can feel that energy coming from the manager on the bench, on the sidelines, and then it transfer into the pitch. Carlo doesn't do that. He's just very laid back. And I think when you are like that, when your team is against the wall, now players look around, they're looking for that leader, that Simeone, that that
So cool.
that do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
So I think Carlo he doesn't have that. So I think it is time that Madrid do go for the younger version of Carlo, a manager that still gives responsibility to players, but he's also very vocal. He's also on the touchline. If he needs to intervene, he intervenes, because the players that you have on the pitch are all still a bunch of kids. As much as they are superstars, they still need a lot of guidance coming from the sideline. And I think that's where Real Madrid, I think this time, is failing, because yes, Barcelona is on the up, and you just need now a little bit from your manager also. And Carlo is just very chilled, and he thinks the players have all the ability to solve problems onto the pitch, so they don't really need him on the sideline. And I think, yeah, and you have shortcomings when you play the likes of Barcelona, and that's why you see this season we've been hammered on Barcelona every single time.
How many
But
times?
next
How many
season's
times?
gonna be different.
No, but with these few
Wait,
points,
I want to ask Carvajal. I want to ask Carvajal.
no, before you come to him, I just
Okay.
want to say this: with these few points of mine and Benny,
he has-
no,
no,
wait.
Benny,
Are you
no.
happy?
Benny,
Are you happy
hold
with
on,
the
hold
answer
on.
that Benny has just
No,
given you now?
Benny-
Okay,
Benny was
Sarah,
in the middle.
continue. Sarah, continue. Sarah, continue.
Benny,
Let's
you
go.
didn't take his side, now that you take mine.
No.
He reached a compromise. He reconciled both.
He just gave
He
you all
reconciled
the
both
answers
parts.
I've been giving you on this show.
No, he
he
reconciled
said
both parts.
everything I've been saying. Benny, I believe that. I don't know the father or the mother that gave birth to you, but I think we might be sharing the same parents because we think exactly alike. Now, let's move on, Sarah.
Okay, Carvajal, a quick one, because I heard you try and make a little comment to Clinton about that El
Yes,
Clasico. But
yes.
do you agree with what Benny said here about Ancelotti and his time being done, and also just your thoughts on the Clasico, maybe?
Yeah, I'll start with the Clasico. It was, I guess the title of the games. Okay, if you compare to the Copa del Rey, maybe not so much, but in terms of league clashes, it was a bit tighter. Obviously Real Madrid took the lead, 2 goals up. But just given the history and just looking at that back line, that Real Madrid back line, you just always felt like Barcelona could come back, and they did quite quickly, as a matter of fact. The only thing I wanted to ask Coach Benny is that, Real Madrid has always been a team where you can say they've been successful under coaches where they've had a bit of a more chill demeanor. I think of Vicente Del Bosque, I think of Zinedine Zidane, I think of Carlo Ancelotti, all very successful managers with Los Merengues, but they haven't really been vocal on the touchline. As you alluded to, they give responsibility to the coaches, and we've seen the brilliant work that Xabi Alonso has done with Bayer Leverkusen. My only concern, and maybe you something you can lend your expertise to, is maybe are the players maybe in danger of being overcoached in that sense, or will he still give them enough responsibility? Because when I look at that Bayer Leverkusen team, it's very regimented. Everybody knows what they need to do. Grimaldo, Frimpong, all on the wings, and then Boniface and then Schick, they know what they have to do as well. So my question just alluded to whether they're going to be able to be coached to that level, to that minuteness, to that detail.
Um, for me, my opinion, how I see it. Bayern Leverkusen is a stepping stone to get to Real Madrid. When you manage at Bayern Leverkusen, you need to have your players thoroughly drilled. Everyone has to know their functions, how every pattern in the squad from minute 1 to minute 90 works. So the team is absolutely well drilled, well run, well organized, and those players' ambition is to finally, eventually get to Real Madrid. So when you get to Real Madrid, all the drillings and all that stops. So those are the top quality, high-end players that now, okay, now you know when you are here, you among superstars, and it's individual qualities that shines through, individual qualities that wins you game. But just to have the structural organization, that okay, this is how we play, this is our identity. But you guys, when you guys are on the pitch, just go and win us football games, you know? And when it gets a little bit tough, then you circle back onto, okay, this is how we structure, this is how we organize, this is how we set up and that. But you don't want to coach world-class players too much, because they are world-class players for a reason. That's why they are in your team. So you got to give them the freedom. You got to allow them to go out and express themselves and work their magic to win football games. But you also got to just have a little bit of tactical organization, so that you don't get done in every single time when you play your biggest rivals, Real Madrid. And that is the difference. That is, I think, what Xavi Alonso will bring in. He won't overcoach too much, because there's no need to overcoach, because he's got all the best players in the world now, and a lot of young superstars. He's just got to give them a little bit of guidance, make them a little bit more harder to beat, more solid in defense and that. But then you let um, their individual qualities go and shine through, because they should have more than enough to beat most teams in the world.
Benni, I want to ask you, just sticking on managers really quickly, about the one and only, the special one, Jose Mourinho. Obviously, you guys went through a lot together, being at Porto, winning the Champions League. But what is your relationship like with Jose Mourinho? And also, do you think after his stint at Fenerbahce that we might see him return to one of the top 5 leagues in Europe?
Possibly could be, because he's not doing too bad with Fenerbahce. Unfortunately, he's got a really, really solid Galatasaray team ahead of him, and to break the mold to get in there and at the top spot will be difficult. But I think he's still got a lot to offer. He's reviving a lot of players that I've worked with at Man U, Fred and um, Sufyan Amrabat. I had them when I was coaching at Man United, and they were always second stream players when you need them. But when you see them, how they're flourishing under Mourinho at Fenerbahce, he's revived their careers and they're doing exceptionally well now. So I still think he's got plenty to offer to world football and to European football to manage any of the big teams. But I think he's getting to that stage where he wants to break into the international mold. So in the near future, we'll see him probably gunning for the national team job for Portugal, because I think that is the one box that he still wants, that he needs to tick.
For sure. Benny, you brought up Manchester United, and I don't know if you know this, but I'm sitting beside two Manchester United fans here that might have some questions. I'm going to leave this just to the two of you. You can direct it to Mr. Benny. We have about 10 minutes left, guys, so let's get what we can.
Oh, Benny, speaking of Manchester United, like, how was your time there? How was your time at Manchester United? Also, how did that move actually happen? Because it was a good move, in my opinion, from a fan's perspective.
Thank you. It was unbelievably stressful. You know, when you work at the biggest club in the world, like that's how I saw it. Like Man U is like an institute. They genuinely is the biggest club in the world. As much as they're not succeeding at the moment, but anywhere you go, it's chaos. It is chaos. So in that respect, oh my God, it was the most unbelievable experience that anyone could, and let alone if you're from Africa, we don't have that kind of access. Like you've seen how many African players have passed through the books of Man United. You can count probably on one hand. So to come from Africa to get the opportunity to work at a place like that with the players that they have, it's just, oh my God, it's the biggest and the best experience that you can have. And yeah, you see there by the pictures, my time there wasn't too bad. It
Honestly,
was stressful, but we won some things. We won an FA Cup. We won a Carabao Cup when Man City was probably the best version of Man City over the last 10 years that you've seen. How strong Man City has been. My time at Man United saw, I thought there was no team in the world that could probably go up against Man City and knock them off their perch. And we did it. We did it twice. We put them to the Carabao Cup and then we knocked them in the FA Cup final. So yeah, I was proud to be a Man United supporter and someone that worked at the club. It was amazing, but now it's just extremely frustrating,
Yeah.
and it's weakening my heart because you know what? Like when you just don't want to know anything about Man U so that you can have at least a decent day. That's where I'm at the moment as well.
Sorry, Benny, I'm just looking at the pictures just flashing on our screen. Obviously, the picture with Cristiano Ronaldo, even Alejandro. No, a whole bunch of them. First of all, I do envy you, though. I'm hoping when I finish my career in Luton, I don't think I have any pictures with any of my Luton players because, as you know, Luton currently, they are now going to League One or League Two. I don't know which one it is. So I'm not very proud of that one.
League One. They dropped
Don't
into
remind me. It's not
League
like I didn't know.
One.
I just probably didn't say anything. Let's just leave it at that for now, boss. But speaking about this Manchester United speaking about this current Manchester United, that in all sincerity, a lot of people are not willing to speak about the current condition with the club. Tell me, Benny, obviously as a coach for Kenya, what is going on? What do you think is wrong with Man U as we speak?
I think when you read, people are losing their jobs, and these are people that almost work for nothing. All they love is that badge. They love the club. They would give anything for Man United without getting paid, and now they are being made redundancy, and I think it's striking fear into anyone that works at the club because you're looking around and you say, am I next? So I don't think you people can work to give the club everything that they can give because they are more worried about, are they going to be next in line to lose their job after everything that you've given the club. So you kind of work cautiously, so you're not reaching your full potential because all that is happening in the club, and it is really destabilizing the club because Man United is not just a football club, it's the people around in the club, the fans, the staff, the people that work in the offices. It's all them. It's a team that makes that club so great. So if there's disruption within the staff and people losing their jobs and that, then of course it's gonna transcend down to the football team because it affects the players as well because you see, that's someone's mom or dad that's without a job. So the players are not just worried about winning football matches, but they are also concerned about what is happening within the club. And yeah, and of course it's not a nice thing. It's not nice when you go to your job and you're trying to give the best, but you know what is happening just in the offices there. People are just dropping like flies, losing their jobs. So yeah, it's all weighing down onto the players. And as much as the players try their best to give the best to the club, to do their best, it's not good enough because that dark cloud of everything that is happening within the club is also hanging over the players. And I had a little bit of a taste of that because when I was still there with Eric, it was said that so many people were going to lose their jobs. And even the coaching staff, we were asking amongst ourselves, hey, does that include us? Do I have to work harder? Do I have to do more now? Or do I have to show these people that, hey, maybe, I'm doing my job the right way, so maybe they should look past me? So it affected even the technical team, because we were also concerned, worried about, well, if we're going to be out the door because this was coming in. So when you have that, it destabilizes the club, and no matter how big or how world-class players that you have, those players aren't going to be able to give you the best performances because all that is happening. And I think once the club is stabilized and then it's running again smoothly, that's when you're going to see a big change onto the pitch as well. But for now, Manu is going to go through some dark years, I think.
Kamokelo, I'm going to let you ask Benny the last question here, as you are the two South Africans joining us today before we wrap this up.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yeah, I think we need to switch gears from United because this is depressing.
Please do, please do. Thank you, man, because it was
Coach,
becoming sorrowful.
Coach, I just wanted to ask you about your time obviously now at Kenya. You've taken over your first few games as Kenya boss. You played against Gambia. You drew 3-3. You pulled off a miraculous comeback, and unfortunately, for some Pierre Emerick Aubameyang brilliance, you lost to Gabon 2-1. So, but you had 2 weeks to work with the players, and all signs are looking like you're they're in good hands, the Kenya national team. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your ultimate ambition, and how far do you see this team going? With the AFCON on the horizon, 2027, and with the World Cup next year in America and Mexico and Canada.
Yeah, listen, it's not been very easy to come in because, like I said, I had 2 weeks from when I joined the national team, and then I had 4 days to prepare players that I've never met before, that I've only watched videos and stuff like that. But it's been so refreshing, I'm like I said, I love eat, sleep, breathe football. So I enjoyed. I wanted that challenge. So when I got there, I think I just used my little bit of knowledge of what it is playing in Africa, what it is playing in the World Cup, what it is playing qualifiers for the World Cup. So I think that's what I kind of the message that I put out to the players, and I think they kind of looked at me with that eyes of, oh my God, we also want to experience this. And that's how I ended up getting them to kind of fight and play the way that I wanted them to play. But unfortunately, it wasn't good enough because the time was very limited. We had 4 days to work together to try and beat Gabon, that was in second place and so far ahead of us already, and Gambia. But just the experience and to see the quality that there was in the team and the potential. It's exciting, and I'm looking forward to going back and then working with the team now, preparing for the next two June um, World Cup international friendlies, and then we've got Chan coming up in August. So a month of that of working with the local players that plays their football in Kenya. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that prospect. But then when I also look when I watched the Under 20 African Nations Cup, I saw some really potential from the Under 20 squad in the Kenyan national team. So a lot of good young players coming through. So I've got a good pot of players to work with. So I'm excited for that. And obviously the end game is to try and do our best to try and qualify for the World Cup 2027 as much as our chances is slim, like Niger.
They had to
Our
mention
chances.
Nigeria. They had to mention Nigeria. Let's end the show.
Thank
They
you, Coach.
mentioned
Thank you. I
Nigeria. They
appreciate
went
that.
to Man
I
U. We
appreciate
went to Real Madrid. Let's go, please. Benny came here to bring me sorrow.
So, sorry, man, brother, sorry. So our chances is pretty slim for qualifying for this World Cup. But in 2027, we are the host of the African Nations Cup. And I think so. My full focus will be on getting the best team out there and then getting the best young players together so that when 2027 African Nations Cup come along in Kenya, we'll be ready not just to participate, but at least to be in a semi-final or in the final. And that is the ultimate goal. What I want to achieve with the national team for Kenya. I think because they deserve it. They are a sleeping giant, waiting to wake up. And hopefully, I'm that guy that's gonna wake up this giant.
Well, we hope so too, Benny, and we wish you the best of luck. We're really going to enjoy watching you and Kenya and see what you guys can do. But in all honesty, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a treat to speak with you. Kamahalo, I'd like to thank you as well, Angel and Clinton. This was such a lovely chat. Benny, a man of the world, necesitamos tenerte de vuelta, okay? Because I think there's much more to talk about
Con
here.
mucho, con
No, let
mucho
him talk. We're
placer, pues
talking.
con mucho placer y cuando quieras ya tienes mi número, me avisas y me presenta aquí a hablar con vosotros porque me encantó mucho esta hora, fui tan rápido y espero que hacemos otra vez. Muchísimas
Perfecto.
gracias
Muchísimas
por la
gracias, Benny.
entrevista.
No,
Tú también,
really,
Benny.
no, goodbye.
Muchas gracias,
A pleasure as
hermano.
always having you as well. Thank you for joining us, our friend from South Africa. But thank you again, Benny. And yeah, we do really wish you the best of luck, guys. We'll be back again on Monday for the next Sporty Show. Another weekend of football. Will Barcelona be the champions of La Liga by then? We'll find out. But until then, as always, enjoy the football and enjoy these highlights of Benni McCarthy and the career that he had.
Sarah and the gang, thank you so much for having me. You guys
Yes,
are
sir.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you
you
so
guys.
much, boss. Thank you.
Much
Thank
love.
you.
Cheers.
Sorry,
Cheers, Coach.
can you not say